Welcome back to CIA Declassified. June 1966, New York City. It was a humid afternoon in the world's busiest underground network. Commuters were worried about the heat, the delays, and the rising cost of a token. They had no idea that a team from the CIA and the Army's Special Operations Division of Fort Detrick was watching them. The men weren't there to ride the train. They were carrying light bulbs filled with trillions of organisms, a biological stimulant. This was Project Big City. The goal was simple: to see how effectively a biological weapon could paralyze an American metropolis. The declassified reports from the 1970s Church Committee hearings reveal a level of clinical detachment that remains shocking today. The test was conducted between June 6th and June 10th, 1966. Agents stood on the tracks of the 14th Street and 23rd Street stations on the 7th Avenue line. When the trains roared into the station, the agents would drop the bacteria-filled light bulbs onto the tracks. The massive intake of the train's ventilation system and the piston effect of the wind pushed the bacteria throughout the entire tunnel system within minutes. A quote from a declassified U.S. Army report, a study of the vulnerability of subway passengers to attack with biological agents. A large portion of the working population in New York City could be exposed to the agent by relatively small releases. The movement of the trains was found to be the most effective mechanism for the rapid dispersal of the aerosol cloud. Calculations indicate that if an infectious agent had been used, several 100,000 infections would have occurred. End quote. The agency used Bacillus globigi, that's the name of the bacteria, because it was believed at the time to be harmless. However, modern medical records and declassified health audits later revealed that the stimulant could cause severe infections in people with compromised immune systems. Despite this, the logs show no medical follow-up was ever performed on the millions of commuters who inhaled the cloud. During the 5-day trial, the researchers didn't just stay in the tunnels. They followed the commuters out of the station and into the city. Using hidden sampling devices disguised as briefcases and handbags, they measured the concentration of the bacteria at street level. They discovered the chimney effect of the subway stairs and ventilation gates turned the sidewalks of Manhattan into secondary contamination zones, effectively blanketing the city's surface in the invisible stimulant. A quote from a declassified field note from June 1966. Observation of the passengers during the release indicated that most were unaware of the shattering of the light bulbs. Even when the dust was visible for a split second, it was ignored as typical subway debris. The apathy of the urban commuter provides a significant tactical advantage for the covert dispersal of biological agents. End quote. The scale of the experiment was massive. Declassified documents indicate that over 20 miles of the New York City transit system were contaminated within the first 20 minutes of the release. The bacteria reached as far as the Bronx and Queens, proving the interconnected nature of the city's infrastructure acted as a perfect delivery system for a pathogen. While the basic mechanics of the subway test are declassified, the section of the report titled, quote, "Secondary Exposure in Domestic Lodging," end quote, remains under heavy redaction. The heaviest redactions follow the tracking of the bacteria outside of the subway system. There is heavy speculation that the CIA tracked how commuters carried the bacteria into their private homes and offices. The theory suggests the redactions hide the fact that the agency secretly monitored specific apartment buildings and hospitals to see how long the biological shadow remained active in domestic spaces. Further speculation surrounds the fatal variant annex. Analysts believe these redacted pages contain a theoretical body count if the stimulant had been replaced with weaponized anthrax or smallpox. It is theorized that the numbers were so catastrophic that the government keeps them classified to prevent public panic regarding the total lack of defense for modern urban infrastructure. There is a persistent theory among researchers that the redactions in Volume 3 of the final report hide a targeted demographic study. The speculation suggests that the agency deliberately timed releases to coincide with shifts that would primarily impact certain socioeconomic or ethnic groups, testing if the spread of a pathogen could be geographically contained to specific neighborhoods through transit control. The most controversial speculation involves the subsequent morbidity files. Because the bacteria was later found to cause adverse health effects, some believe the redacted portions of the logs actually track a spike in respiratory illnesses in the New York area during the summer of 1966, meaning the CIA may have known they were making people sick in real time but chose to redact the evidence rather than provide medical aid. Was Project Big City a success? From a scientific and tactical standpoint, the operation was a terrifying success. It proved that a single individual with a suitcase could theoretically infect 1 million people with minimal effort. A quote from Senator Richard Schweiker, 1975 hearings. The CIA used the American people as guinea pigs. They treated the New York City subway like a laboratory and the passengers like lab rats. They proved the vulnerability of our cities, but at the cost of the very principles they were supposed to protect. End quote. The success of the New York tests led to the agency to expand the program. Declassified files show similar vulnerability studies were conducted at the Washington National Airport and on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, where agents used exhaust pipe dispensers to spray stimulants into the air. The testing didn't end with Project Big City. The success of the subway dispersal model led directly to Project SHAD, Shipboard Hazard in Defense, where the military tested the same stimulants on thousands of Navy personnel. The New York experiments provided the fundamental data for how aerosolized clouds behave in enclosed high-velocity environments, a data set that remains the gold standard for bioweapon dispersal models today. Project Big City changed the way U.S. government approached urban defense and biological surveillance. Some operational breakthroughs: aerosol mapping. The project provided the first comprehensive wind map of underground transit systems, which is still used today for emergency planning and gas leak response. Atmospheric sensor development. The failure to detect the bacteria without specialized CIA equipment led to the development of the first rapid response biological sensors for high traffic areas. Simulant engineering. The agency refined the process of freeze-drying bacteria for long-term storage and rapid dispersal, a technique that unfortunately became a standard in the production of actual biological weapons. One of the most significant technological breakthroughs was the creation of the partitioner sampling box. This device allowed the agency to distinguish between new bacteria released in the tunnels and the background bacteria already present in the city's air. This refined the science of forensic epidemiology, allowing intelligence agencies to trace the exact point of origin for a biological attack. Project Big City remains a dark chapter in the history of domestic intelligence. It stands as a reminder that the safety of the public is often a secondary concern to the cold data of the vulnerability study. The next time you feel a breeze on a subway platform, remember the cloud that was there in 1966. Next time on CIA Declassified, we move from the tunnels of New York to the heights of the Himalayas. We examine Operation Fury. How did the CIA end up training Tibetan monks in the mountains of Colorado? We'll look at the declassified logs of the clandestine support for the Tibetan resistance against China. From secret airlifts to the guerrilla camp at Camp Hale, we explore the agency's forgotten war at the roof of the world. Join us for The Monk with the Machine Gun. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.